welcome back to the Jake Bequette Show podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bequette, back in the house for another tremendous episode this week. Got a really fun one for you this week. It's a subject that I'm very passionate about. Can't wait to rant and rave on this one. I've teased it over a couple of previous podcasts, but we're going to get into it in depth. It's a subject I get asked about all the time, and that is fitness. People ask me, hey, Jake, what do you do for training? What do you do to work out? What do you do for exercise? You see a lot of things on kind of the right wing online space about, bodybuilding, sun and steel, the importance of strength training. We'll get into all that. Obviously, I played high school, college, and professional sports. I was in the military. I've been strength training for over 20 years now. So I'd like to think I have a bit of credibility on this. Obviously, I don't pretend to have all the answers. That's something that is pretty constant in the strength and conditioning community. Everyone, has their method, and everyone's very passionate about it. And competition and debate is always good. But this is what I do, and I'm going to share with you my methods, my journey, what I've observed over 20 years, and what I'm convinced is the best method for achieving a state of fitness and maintaining that and improving over the course of your entire life. And that's really the purpose of this podcast, is to share why I believe that strength training must be the foundation of anyone's concept of fitness, especially for males, men of all ages. Really from puberty, age 12, 13, up until death, you have to focus on strength. You have to be strong. And as we'll get into later, it's why one of my favorite methodologies and podcasts and information to consume is called starting strength. What is strength? I mean, strength is, there's an algebraic equation. What is strength? Strength is, it's force that is applied, right? And strength is the most important aspect of one's physical existence. Okay, I'm not talking about your spiritual existence. I don't think that strength is the most important aspect of your life, but it is the most important aspect of your physical existence. Strength has to be the foundation of everything that you do. That's how you get up out of bed. That's how you walk around. That's how you move objects. That's how you get muscular. That's how you, in my opinion, you achieve a higher level of self-esteem and self-worth, and you set goals and you achieve that. So let's just get some definitions out of the way. You hear a lot about exercise versus training, and I'm not one of these hardos. You see a lot of people are like, I'm not, I'm training. I'm not working out. I'm not one of those guys. But I do think there is an important distinction between exercise and training. So what is exercise? Exercise is, it is any kind of physical movement. I just, someone who is exercising, that's someone who is walking around the block. That's someone who goes to the gym, before or after work. They get in the sauna. They, take a lap around the track. They do a couple of dumbbell curls, maybe a couple of machines. Then they, get in the jacuzzi, take a steam, and that's exercise. And there's nothing wrong with exercise. But you're I may be describing a lot of your current, what you're doing for fitness, and that's really not going to give you any lasting results. It's not going to make you strong. Exercise, I don't think it's a waste of time, but essentially it's kind of a waste of time. You're not going to improve. Training is a planned, recorded system designed to produce an adaptation. Now, you can train for a lot of different things. You can train to be a better golfer. You can train to run a marathon. You can train. It's not just physical. Training, but it's a system. That's the most important thing. It's a system designed to produce an adaptation, and that's kind of where we go into my definition of strength training. Borrowed from starting strength, which is a process by which you apply stress to your body to produce an adaptation, specifically a strength adaptation. And really, before we go any deeper into this podcast, you have to decide what you want to do. If you want to be someone who's, skinny fat, overweight, not really muscular, not really strong, then by all means, just continue exercising. But if you want more, if you want to achieve strength, if you want to achieve what I think is a definition of fitness, then you have to get strong. You have to be strength training. You have to get into a system that is designed to produce a strength adaptation. I want you, as in all things, to break away from the herd and achieve things that other people are not achieving. So, for some people might hear that and say, "Well, Jake, I'm way ahead of you. I'm training. I do CrossFit or something like that. I do P90X. I do Orange Theory. Something like that. I do yoga. Those are not inherently bad things. I've done CrossFit, but I'll tell you a story about CrossFit that I really, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I've done CrossFit in the past, and we'll get into that. But so I was watching. There's a documentary that comes out every year, around the time of the CrossFit Games, and it's like a year long, compilation of footage of these top elite CrossFit athletes. And the guy, there's been like Rich Froning, and then this guy named Matt Frazier, who kind of dominated the sport of fitness. And Matt Frazier, he was like, I think this was like 2015. This was like his first, year where he was like really a competitive CrossFitter. And he ended up winning the CrossFit Games multiple times. The guy is incredibly fit. But he was talking about how he got into CrossFit. And I can't believe they included this in the documentary, because it kind of like undercut the theory of CrossFit to a certain extent. But Matt Frazier was talking about how he got into CrossFit. Matt Frazier was a competitive lifter. Okay, he had spent time, I believe, with the U.S. Junior Olympic team in Colorado Springs. I've known some guys who have been through that, protocol. Like, they get you at a very young age, and what you do day in, day out is you train. You go through strength cycles for months and years at a time. And Matt Frazier was one of those guys, and he was done with that. He had moved on, and he was looking for a gym to go to that had bumper plates, that had barbells. And so he stumbled into this CrossFit gym. And they were like, "Yeah, man, you can use the weights over there, no problem." And the guy starts like lifting, and the people in the CrossFit gym are like, "Man, who the hell is this guy? This guy's throwing up serious weight." And like Matt Frazier was like, "Yeah, I like, people wonder how I rose to the top of CrossFit very quickly." And Matt Frazier was very open about it. He said, "It's because I came into CrossFit with a 500-pound squat." And Frazier's not that big of a guy. I think he's like 5'6", well under 200 pounds. But he came into CrossFit. He started doing CrossFit. He was already strong. Okay, he had a top 1%, level of strength, compared to anyone in the CrossFit community. And so basically, like, what happened with him in CrossFit is, he started doing CrossFit, and he was already super strong. And it took him, 6 months to a year of like learning the gymnastics and getting into decent cardiovascular and metabolic shape and endurance. And the guy was like winning the CrossFit Games. And I saw this personally. So when I was in law school in DC, I had just left. It's between football and the military. I was in law school in DC, and I went to a CrossFit gym. It's my first time going to a CrossFit gym, like as a member, like going consistently. And I wasn't like kind of a Matt Frazier situation, but like I walked in there, and these people were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like, he's lifting way more than anyone else here. And like, I understand that. Like, people get frustrated. People who do CrossFit for years at a time, they get into this rut where they, because like when you do CrossFit, especially as a part of a class, you might do a lift here and there. You might do a heavy lift once a day, and then some kind of a metcon, a metabolic conditioning piece, and then you cool down and stretch, and like that's it. And these people who have been doing CrossFit for years, they were like kind of pissed off. They saw me walk in there off the street, and I was lifting way more than them. And so that kind of rang a bell in my head, and it was confirmed by that Matt Frazier anecdote, that the first and most important thing in fitness, in training, is getting strong, is strength. You have to be strong. So like it's hard to cut through all the propaganda, right? Because there's a whole fitness industry. Everyone knows what we're talking about, and it's not just the fitness industry. It's the government, it's the media, it's doctors. They'll tell you like they kind of have their talking points, where the average doctor will tell you that lifting can be dangerous, and you don't need to be lifting heavy. You might hurt your back. Really what you should be doing is going for a walk, or going for running a couple of miles every day. Maybe getting on the rower, doing some air squats. That's exercise. And again, like I'm not telling you that exercise is bad, but I'm telling you that you're never going to get strong if you're exercising. The only way to get strong and achieve this foundational building block of fitness, of masculinity, in my opinion, is to do strength training, is to get strong. Okay, so that's I'm fully acknowledging that like the media battle has kind of been won. Like the strong people, the strength people have kind of lost that fight temporarily. But as all things, the truth is it's just a matter of time before it's exposed. And I really think that with the advent of the internet and social media, you really can't hide these things. And hopefully in right wing circles, people will start to kind of wake up and realize that hey, like I've got to stop exercising and I've got to start strength training. So, like, just some benchmarks right out of the way. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. I mean, unless you're like over 70 or 80. There's no reason why a young man who is generally healthy should not be able to bench 225, 2 plates, should not be able to squat 315, 3 plates, and should not be able to deadlift 405, 4 plates. There's no reason why you should not be able to do that. I don't care how tall you are. I don't care about your athletic background. I don't care about what. Like there is no reason why any man should not be able to lift those benchmarks. Okay, and so like that's kind of like the foundation. Like that is someone who like 2, 3, and 4 plates, 225, 315, 405. Those should be your no matter where you are. Like that should be just a foundational benchmark. And then what I personally consider to be strong is someone who can clean over 300, who can bench over 400, who can squat over 500, and who can deadlift over 600. Now that is strong. Like that's a lot. Those are like top 1% lifts. Not everyone is going to be able to achieve that based on their age and their genetic makeup. But like that's what I consider to be strong. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Those are benchmarks that I have. Like I know that I'm strong and healthy when I'm hitting those benchmarks. And if you can do all that while running a 6-minute mile, I consider you to be fit. And look, I'm not a runner. Maybe I've been kind of brainwashed by my time in the military, but I do think there is an aspect of overall fitness, that is running. And that's what Matt Frazier and Rich Froning and those guys, they really struggled with because they came in, Froning was a football guy. Frazier was a lifter. They weren't runners. And so they were, their strength, so to speak, in athletics was not cardiovascular endurance. I don't think running a marathon is a good benchmark of fitness. I think it's just kind of a loony kind of endurance event. Again, I'm not looking down on someone. I have no interest in running a marathon. I mean, I can go out there and run a 5K or run a 10K. I could probably even run a half marathon. I wouldn't enjoy it, but I'm fit, so I can do those things. But again, like if you can lift those lifts and run a 6-ish minute mile, you're someone who is physically fit. Those are good, solid, tough benchmarks to achieve. And for anyone out there who takes their conditioning and fitness seriously, they should consider doing those benchmarks. So what is starting strength, and what are my methods for strength training? So I encourage everyone to start listening to the Starting Strength podcast. It's fantastic. You can go online, startingstrength.com. You can find a starting strength gym in your area. My brother's doing it up in Pennsylvania. He's training some people, and he has turned me on to it, and some others in the fitness community have shown me to it. And really, they don't even rag on CrossFit that much because for a time, some CrossFit gyms, and I assume some still do, they were incorporating some starting strength into their methodology because they realized that people weren't getting stronger just doing straight CrossFit. And you're not. You're not going to be able to recover. You're not going to be on a linear progression. You're not going to be adding weight to the bar. You're going to be kind of like in this, nonstop feedback loop of getting tired and sore and not recovering, and therefore not getting stronger. So that's why I think that starting strength is the best place to start. You can always transition from there into adding different things. That's what I do. And I'll get into kind of what my protocol is a little bit later. But starting strength. One thing you'll see immediately is what's called the basic linear progression. And it's extraordinarily simple. You can start, someone who just walks into the gym, or you can do it, someone like me who's an advanced lifter. Anyone can do a basic linear progression where basically it's you find a benchmark, you find, kind of your 70 to 75% of 1 rep max on the major lifts, the clean, the press, the bench press, the squat, the deadlift. Those are the five major lifts. And you find kind of a working 70-75%, and you go from there and you do three times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something along those lines. Where you or Monday, Thursday, Saturday, if you want an extra day of recovery, kind of midweek, and you do three sets of five. There's a rotation, you'll see it on the programming, where you'll do the basic lifts for three sets of five. And if you achieve but the weight that is set, and you complete three sets of five with a proper form and proper depth, then the next time around you add 5 pounds and you do three sets of five. This is not complicated, but what you're doing in this training protocol is you're producing an adaptation that's going to result in strength. And obviously there's a nutrition aspect to this. You've got to get big. I see people who are they want to get strong, but they don't want to get bigger. And just physically, that's just not going to happen. You've got to be eating enough, so your body can convert that recovery time into added muscle, that adaptation. If you're not recovering and you don't have the proper nutrients, you're not going to get stronger. So I encourage almost everyone, within the sound of my voice, basically, if you're not as strong as you want to be, you're probably not as big as you should be. You should probably gain 25 pounds, immediately. I mean, I say that to everyone. I mean, the first thing you should do is gain 25 pounds while you're doing a basic linear progression on starting strength. And that's really, that is the building block. That's how you're going to get strong. And as you progress and as you adapt and as you become more of an advanced lifter, I've done 20 years of strength cycles, okay, doing a wide array of things. And basically where I'm at is like a 5 day a week program. Kind of how I train. I like to train first thing in the morning before I work. I kind of do some light cardio, like a long walk in the mornings before the sun comes up. And then I lift. And, that 5 times a week, obviously with some added cardio, and some added, I will do some CrossFit style metabolic conditioning before I lift on occasion, just because I enjoy it. And I think that's an overall aspect of an advanced level of fitness, is having a solid level of endurance and a solid level of metabolic conditioning. But again, don't get distracted with that if you're a beginner. The first thing you should be doing, you shouldn't be running, you shouldn't be doing cardio, you should be getting strong. You should be eating and lifting and recovering. That's all you should be doing, getting proper sleep. I mean, that's really, it might sound simple or simplistic, but trust me on this. I mean, I gave you my resume on this in strength training. That's the best way to do it. And just to conclude here, I want to talk about, high level athletics. I think a lot of people, and this kind of goes into the fitness propaganda, is you see people like, college and professional athletes and college and professional strength coaches. They have their elite athletes doing like crazy stuff. I mean, we've all seen, they'll be doing like Bosu ball, single leg bridges, and, all these like exotic things in the gym. And like that gets a lot of clicks and a lot of page views. And it allows the strength coaches to, develop their own kind of methodology that they can then, use as their resume builder. I'm training this guy, I'm training that guy, and here's how we're doing it. But basically, and here's what these people aren't telling you, and I'm going to tell you, and the starting strength people say this, and it's one of the reasons why, I admire them so much, is because they admit this, is that genetics has a huge factor on strength and conditioning. It just does. I mean, we all know those people who have been genetically gifted. I certainly was to a certain extent. I'm tall and I'm explosive. And I tell people, like, you're always going to have an advantage in strength training if you have genetic gifts. I mean, that's just the way it is. To me, the primary litmus test of someone who has genetic gifts in terms of strength and explosiveness, it is really explosiveness, and that's measured by the vertical jump. People ask me, hey, like, should I train my kid to be a college or professional athlete? I'm never going to say no, because as I've described in previous podcasts, I recommend that, should my son play football podcast? The answer is yes. Like, I think you should encourage your children, particularly your sons, to work hard, to get on a training plan, a strength training plan, to document the lifts, again, like every real lifter that I see in the gym, where I know personally, like, first of all, they look muscular, and second of all, they log their lifts. They have a notebook with them. That's just an easy rule of thumb for, like, hey, is someone, a serious lifter? They're logging their lifts. They have a notebook with them in the gym. It's a serious thing. So they should always, yes, tell your kids to lift and train, but you should have your kids, strength training. But you should understand that if your kid at a young age doesn't have a very good vertical jump, if your kid is not explosive, then his genetic ceiling is going to be lower than a lot of people who are in those upper echelons. I mean, I saw this personally at the college and pro level. I mean, guys who get recruited and guys who get drafted into the NFL, they have ridiculous vertical jumps. I mean, like guys who can, Jamie Collins, for example, I use his example a lot. I mean, the guy had like a, 45-inch vertical. I saw it. He could squat over 600 pounds, and he wasn't even like a serious lifter. Like he was just incredibly genetically gifted. Like that guy, whatever training program you put him on, he's going to be a freak. Like Chandler Jones was a similar guy. He was a Pro Bowl defensive end. He was in my draft class. He was a first round pick. Had a great career with the Patriots, and like he was just genetically gifted. Like his brother, his two older brothers were all three of the Jones brothers were world champions. John Bones Jones was a UFC champion. His older brother was a world champion with the Baltimore Ravens, and then Chandler was a world champion with the Patriots. So like Chandler had super long arms. We called him like the go-go gadget arms. But Chandler wasn't that fast. He wasn't that strong. And like you'll see stuff that he'll post on his social media. I'm not, Chandler, if you're listening to this, I'm not coming after you. But like his training is like he does a lot of flexibility stuff. He does a lot of Bosu ball stuff. Like Chandler's just gifted, and really he's just trying to maintain. I would, I don't think that's good. I think he should be lifting. I think anyone should be lifting. Like that's really the easiest thing that any strength training coach can do is to make someone faster, is to get them stronger. I mean, if you need more evidence of this, look at the 100-meter sprinters who are world champions, who are Olympians. I mean, look at those guys. Those guys are jacked. Those guys are yoked. Usain Bolt, all those guys, they lift, okay, because they know that force, speed, it's an algebraic equation where strength is part of that equation. Where if you like I've seen it happen numerous times, and I did this personally. Like I worked out with a trainer. It wasn't starting strength, but when I was in high school and training up to be a college athlete, I would strength train for months at a time without running. We wouldn't even run that much because you don't get faster at the track. Okay, you work on your form at the track. You work on your the mechanics of running at the track, but you get faster in the gym. You get faster under the barbell. Trust me on this, okay? So to anyone out there who's kind of wondering what they want to do, if they're frustrated, they're not getting the results they want, they're not getting more muscular, they're not getting stronger. What I recommend is go on startingstrength.com or reach out to me on social media at JakeBeckett91. Leave a comment on this video, whatever it is. I'll get in touch with you, and I will put you on a basic linear progression. And I promise you, if you follow the protocol, Starting Strength has some great YouTube videos on form. They're very passionate and very precise about how they coach people how to lift. Go to a Starting Strength gym if there's one in your area. Just drop in and get a training session. And you get what you pay for. It's not cheap, but that kind of training it's invaluable to me because part of being a man, especially in our weak and feminized culture, you have to be strong. Okay, and that's going to separate you from your peers. People are going to look at you differently. You're going to carry yourself differently. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to have more focus. You're going to be more intentional about every aspect of your life if you start with strength. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on overall fitness and what it means to be strong, the importance of it. And again, I'll leave you with the ultimate quote from Starting Strength. It's there. They have a great book. If you want to get deep into it, you can order their book and read it. But the opening line of their book, kind of their mantra, strength is the most important aspect of one's physical existence. And signing off, this is Jake Beckett from The Jake Beckett Show. Until next time, have a good one.